Hello and welcome back to Cartoon Everything. I'm Meesimo. This is,
Haley Light.
hey, we're back again. We did our awesome Cartoon Everything workshop slash retreat last summer, and we had so much fun. We're going to do it again.
I can't wait to go back to the beautiful Highlights Foundation in Pennsylvania. This year, we're going to do it from August 3rd through the 6th.
Yeah, we'll be there eating, sleeping, drawing, everything cartoons, and cartooning everything in sight. It's a great spot. It's an idyllic location on the Highlights Foundation. We all get our own cabin. They have great food on site. They do an on-site chef, 3 meals a day. Tell me some of your favorite parts.
One of my favorite things that we did was we took our attendees on a walk, and we actually all sat together and looked around us, and we kind of interpreted what we saw through our cartoon filters and some of what the attendees drew. I think all of a sudden there was a kraken coming out of the stream. Um, it's a beautiful spot. It's not just a workshop, but it also is a retreat because really the grounds of the Highlight Foundation are so lovely. You feel kind of out of your normal life and taken care of while you're there. You have your cozy cabin, which you can retreat to whenever you wish to. But we have so much fun just hanging out, watching cartoons, drawing cartoons, talking about cartoons and cartoonists, and sharing each other's actual projects. We workshop projects that you bring with you, and we talk about them, and we actually help our attendees, if they need to, look at things differently and level up some of their cartooning skills.
That was one of my favorite aspects, commiserating about cartoons, but also talking one-on-one with each artist about what they're working on, giving feedback, seeing artists give feedback to each other. You can come level up, learn about deeper into caricature, which is kind of my specialty, as well as comics, children's book, illustrating and creating with Kelly and her awesome background and expertise. You can learn about that stuff. You can apply it to your own work. You can bring a project with you to work on. But basically, it's just intense, but in a good way and fun. 3 days of just awesome cartoon creation, study, learning, commiserating. It's kind of like a great mini symposia on cartooning. You come out inspired, even though we're not there to rest. You feel rested and reinvigorated by the end of the trip, and with a new outlook on how to approach and attack whatever you're working on. And maybe you've got some ideas for something new.
There are a lot of workshops out there for people to take. There's a lot of workshops, especially in my world, in the world of children's publishing, there's always workshops. But even in the bigger world, whether it's comics, if you're attending Comic Cons, or whether you are taking workshops to work on your illustration, in the world of cartoons, though, there's not as many workshops out there. So the opportunity, when you meet other cartoonists, you realize the amount of passion that cartoonists have for this genre of seeing and making art. And so I think about our workshop as a rare opportunity to talk about cartoons, to talk about making cartoons, and to talk about the different ways you can apply your cartooning skills, and how much overlap there is even within the world of cartooning, because there are caricaturists that also work in comics, that also work in animation, that also work in children's books, and it all kind of goes hand in hand. So I think I've been someone who's attended a lot of workshops in my past, and I thought about what would have been the workshop I wish I could have attended. And so that's kind of how Cartoon Everything was born. But boy, I really would just love it if I could go somewhere and just talk about cartooning.
Yeah, and with other cartoonists who share that same love and history and knowledge of cartooning and the vast history of cartooning itself and all the wonderful classic animators and cartoonists that we all have admired and aspired to, which some of that history is lost on younger cartoonists. So it's nice to meet up with people that maybe you can hear about a new cartoonist from, and then delve into their work. So I think overall, amazing experience. Something new that we're doing this year is a podcast in conjunction with the retreat / workshop.
Those are the moments everybody that we've talked to so far, we've learned something new from. We're like, no, I've never. Or maybe you, right? You might be like, oh yeah, I've seen that, or oh, I know that book, and I don't, or vice versa. Like,
Right.
oh, and then you'll see us scribble down, like, oh, I'll have to check that out. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sharing, that give and take happens at our workshop as well. Right? We might expose the people who come to the workshop to something they've never seen before, but in turn, too, the people who come to the workshop also bring whatever their interests and their
Right.
passions
Right.
are
Yeah.
too.
Whether it's
Yeah.
some of their own process or different techniques that we're sharing or that they're sharing. So it's a fertile ground, and the highlights retreat center is so inspiring to be at. It's you're not wanting for anything there. It's a beautiful scenic area. There's art everywhere. There's cartooning everywhere. There's books and resources. There's original art to look at. So it's just the environment itself as rejuvenating, and then all the workshop activities that we have and go through are not strenuous, but they can be rigorous in the best ways and in the most rejuvenating and inspiring ways I found last year. Looking forward to doing it again.
So it was your first time at the Highlights Foundation, right? It was like in the cabin because you'd never stayed in one before. So when you first arrive at the Highlights Foundation, you'll realize that you're on what is an original farm, but the retreat center has been designed for creatives. It's for people who write, for people who illustrate, to go there and get away from the world. And one of the ways that you get away from the world is you get your own little cabin. I think last year you stayed in the Steve Light cabin, right?
That's right. So you walk in, and it was the Steve Light cabin. So it's filled with awesome original art and pieces by Steve Light, amazing cartoonist. It's got some of his books there, and there's a guest book that every artist who has stayed there does a little notation or a little sketch inside. So that's inspiring. It's got a cute little desk with a light on it. So even after a long day of the workshop, you come in there and you can't help but sitting down to do a little more drawing, a little more cartooning, a little more reading of some great book that you just discovered, or maybe making some notes on whatever graphic novel or comic you're trying to work on. Yeah, I was blown away by the whole experience of being there. I had long heard about it. I've had friends go there to attend workshops. I've had friends go there to teach workshops. And it's just kind of something I looked forward to making it there somehow, and was blown away. It exceeded my expectations being there, and can't wait to get back.
And the cabin is just footsteps away from the main barn, which is where the meals are served and where the workshop happens. So it's kind of, people sometimes refer to being at the Highlands Foundation as feeling like you're at summer camp, but summer camp for creatives. So and the chance for when you're grown up to go back and do something that feels kind of like summer camp. So along with the workshop, which is happening this summer at the Highlights Foundation, August 3rd through the 6th, we've started this podcast and we'll be doing little short videos. We're going to be rolling out some really great, amazing books that maybe you guys will be inspired to take a look at. There's one right now. There's another one right now. So I'll start by asking you, Chris, a little bit of the questions that we ask some of our guests, so that people watching this can get to know us and know why do I want to come and spend 3 days with these people?
Why the heck do I want to listen to these two jokers?
Yeah. So, Chris, first of all, you hail from...
Born and raised in the Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri, or Missouri, however you like to say it. Lovely town, nice people, great food, and there's a lot of cartooning history that has passed through St. Louis over the years. But very lucky to also have a chance to travel the world and explore cartooning all over the place as a caricature artist as kind of my day job for many years before getting further into comics and illustration in general. I've done everything from editorial illustration to storyboarding, comics, designs, t-shirt designs, anything under the sun. My favorite passion, though, it all comes back to cartooning. The Venn diagram of my entire drawing experience, cartooning is the thing that connects everything, whether it's drawing comics, comic strips, caricatures. I always love cartooning, and it goes back to my inspiration as a kid from Mad Magazine to the the Smithsonian book of comic book comics, or the Smithsonian collected book of newspaper comics. It all comes back to that stuff. So,
We
and then,
always talk to the people that we talk to about, like, can you remember what it was that first kickstarted your love of drawing in cartoons and drawing cartoon styles? And I know that book was the thing. The Smithsonian book of comic books
absolutely.
was the thing that like ignited your passion and got you picking up a pencil and seeing the world through what I always like say, seeing the world through shape and line and interpretation and stylizing and um and your natural trajectory of going into caricature, again, it just took that. I always, since I've gotten to know you, it is drawing as a caricature artist is the most intense amount of drawing practice you could possibly have. And it's that whole idea of the 10,000 hour rule, right? And you killed that rule in the first summer that you were a caricature artist.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
figured out I did about 10,000 faces that first summer. So it's very
Yeah.
intense, but it really is the best way to learn on the job. You're being paid to train yourself, basically figure drawing, life drawing for hours on end. Sometimes, no days off for good behavior in the summertime. You gotta make hay while the sun is shining. We're out there drawing hundreds of faces per day, dozens of faces per day, hundreds of faces per week. I think upwards of 10,000 or more per season. So yeah, it's really, I say that's the secret. All you got to do to get better as an artist to draw 10,000 really bad drawings, and then the good ones start to flow
Right.
through.
Yeah. And at the same time, you had this intense love for comics, for comic
Right.
books, comic strips, and you wanted to make your own comics, which is the other flip side of your life as a cartoonist, is your actual life making your own comic books, which was so exciting to be recently at an independent Comic-Con in New Haven, Connecticut with Chris. So, yeah, you can talk a little bit,
Yeah,
just say a little bit about
IC3,
that. Yeah.
IC3, amazing independent creator, comics creator con. One of my favorite cons I've ever done. I've done it. This is the second year they've done it. Just the vibe is so great. It's like we're kind of doing a mini version of that at our workshop that I found just naturally happens before and after at the kind of drink and draw. There may not be that much drinking going on. It's more about just commiserating with all these cartoonists and fellow comic creators. We do that on a small scale at our workshop. I found a kind of similar kind of vibe. So, yeah, IC3 is amazing. I'll be doing, I guess, like slightly larger scale. I'll be at Heroes Con later this year. I've heard it's a similar kind of vibe as far as uh, larger scale, best version of a Comic Con you could hope for. It's so artist friendly, artist centric, and just about the comics and about cartooning and the creation.
And you have
Priceless.
this arc of a story you started when you were in high school called Turbo Hawk, and you have volume 1 and volume 2 done, and volume 3 is
Volume 3 is completed at the printers, as they say. So coming out through your favorite new comic publisher, Cosmic Lion Productions, later this summer. The first issue of the new edition should be in stores, hopefully as you're watching this. Then the next issues will be coming out. I'm in the middle of issue 4 as we speak, but hopefully by end of the summer, early fall, all 4 issues will finally be available. A saga over 20 years in the making, started as a homemade comic that I would photocopy at the local Kinko's copy shop as a kid under the name Quest for Rain. And then I kind of dove back into it during 2020, basically, and then really got into it during my MFA program as part of my thesis project. So finally, the long saga of Quest for Rain and Turbo Hawk is culminating this summer. So very excited about that.
that's exciting. So people who come to the workshop can experience it as a whole. One, two,
Exactly.
and three. Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome.
More questions?
Another thing that you do is you teach at Webster University in St. Louis, and there you're teaching cartooning.
Right. Yeah, I'm really honored to be at Webster University. I'm teaching animation topics class. It's basically caricature and how it applies to animation and as well as comics. So we're kind of doing a mini version of that at our cartooning retreat. But basically, yeah, it's cartooning, which is really lucky to teach that at a university level, at a place of such esteem.
I also teach. I teach here in, I live in Massachusetts, but I teach in Connecticut. So teaching a class on character design, a class that is drawing for animation and video games, which is also something that feels very natural to teach in a college environment, especially when you have students who are coming in who are so enthusiastic and passionate about the idea of working as a cartoonist in animation or video games, and many of them are also fascinated with the world of graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's cool to be able to do that with college students. But I found after the workshop last year, it almost helped with now bringing it into the college environment. So the workshop is a little mini version of that. It's the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity again to talk about art skills that may be just a little bit more specific. Right? It's not all art. It's the
Right.
idea of like, hey, let's look at reality, let's learn from reality, let's study reality, but then let's play with it. Then let's have fun with it.
Right.
Then let's change it. Then let's interpret it. So yeah, so teaching college has been so enjoyable.
Absolutely. Challenging, rewarding, educational on both sides, I think. I think our workshop is kind of a mini encapsulation of that whole experience because we basically had professional level artists at the retreat. So that raises the whole experience. I felt like a kind of a master class on cartooning in retreat form in a big way. So,
Okay. So when we're doing our podcast, we always ask our guests a certain list of rapid fire questions. So I thought it would be good for you and I to ask each other these questions. So we're asking everybody else this. Well, why don't we find this out about each other too? Okay. So the first question is, Chris, what is your favorite medium?
I love drawing. It's hard to, it's
I
like
know.
the age old question, but it's a tough one. So I love drawing with pencil, but I think what I draw with the most, and that's how I can say, well, it must be my favorite if I use it primarily, is ink pens. I just
Mm-hmm.
love the fluid line work, and when I have my sketchbooks, I always come back. I always make sure when I leave in the house, I have a sketchbook and I have an ink pen that works.
Cool. Just recently, you mentioned a zebra pen.
I love a zebra pen. I love the brush pens. Practically, I think I end up with a micron
The mic
most
on.
often. But I
Mm-hmm.
love, yeah, the zebra brush pens or the Pigma. I'm always up for trying something new. But
Yeah, I like them
the
too because they have a little bit of a
yeah,
flexible tip, so you can
like a
get
number
thick and
8,
thin.
or now they have a number 10 or 12. Like
Mm.
so, you can. I feel like you can get the full gamut. Kind of like if you actually learn how to use a brush, you can get any kind of line you want out of it. But some people use like the O1. I had a friend that used like 0.005 and like do these tiny, noodly lines. But O8 and up, I feel like you can still get those little lines, but also the fat ones. So nice variety.
Cool. All right. So, if you had to pick one and only one, do you have an absolutely favorite cartoon character?
I think even though it's not like I read the comic that much necessarily, my favorite thing to draw comes back to Batman. Because Batman,
Mm.
you can draw him any way. I love drawing the derpiest Batman possible. When I don't know what to draw, I will often just draw a derpy Batman. So favorite character, I think, by default. I love Calvin and Hobbes. I love Pogo. I love all these other ones, but Batman, I think I draw the most. So again, it's what do I do? What do I default to when I don't know what else to draw, or is the most fun? And I love
What is
so
it
many
about
iterations.
Batman? Like, yeah, what is it
I
about
think that's
Batman? What
it.
do you think?
It's such a great
Mm-hmm.
design. It's so iconic. It holds up to a million interpretations. You can go goofy. You can go super serious, overly serious. Like,
Mm.
so every iteration is still fun for me. So I think
Did you
that's a true
experience
key is that it holds
Batman?
up.
Yeah. Did you experience Batman first as a comic, a cartoon, or the
And I think it
TV
goes back to
show?
my formative years. So the
Mm-hmm.
TV show was big, and we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it was a comedy at first. As a kid, we just thought it was cool. And we'd put on, me and my cousins would put on towels with a clothespin and run around with that was our cape. But one of my
Yeah.
earliest books I remember having was like a Batman comic that had been chopped up into like a square, newsprint
Mm.
paperback. This Batman comic, not really a graphic novel, but it was just like a paperback sized edition of some Batman stories that I remember distinctly as a kid having and trying to redraw,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
yeah, the Adam West Batman was great. And then the real revelation where it finally was legitimately cool was the Bruce Timm Batman the Animated Series. So
Yeah.
finally everybody else knew he was as cool as knew he was. So.
Yeah, that really did kind of. There were two things, right? There was the when the Bruce Timm Batman animated show came out, and then it was when the Dark Knight came out, right? It
Yeah,
almost like Batman had like boom boom, like two big
right. Because Tim Burton was
renaissances.
cool and that was a cultural moment, but
Yeah,
it was like the first big, but it still wasn't quite taking it seriously or doing it
right.
justice, really, But
Yeah,
yeah, between Batman the Animated Series, Batman Begins was a step forward, and then The Dark Knight was like, bam. But also early on, Frank Miller's, Batman Year One is a pivotal
mm-hmm.
comic for me, and Batman The Dark Knight Returns was like, that really broke some barriers and got people to recognize comics as legitimately artistic.
Right. If Batman's your favorite character, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that Batman is your favorite comic book of all time. But if you had to pick one, which is a favorite comic book and or a favorite cartoon or a favorite comic strip, right? Your one thing that's complete that is drawn in the cartoon genre, and you only had to pick one, what would it be?
Probably Calvin and Hobbes, even though. So I'll say Calvin and Hobbes, but I think every other person we talk to says Calvin and Hobbes, so I'll put that. Of course, Calvin and Hobbes, but if I can't pick that,
Mm.
then I might pick. This is an impossible question. I think one of the books that I always go back to, and I don't even know the title of it, but it's this Carlos Nine book that I picked up in France as a kid. It's like Muertos. It's this little like diminutive detective, and it's very noir. I know a little French, but I've never really read it. It's just so beautiful and fun to look at. So that one is one of my favorites that I always go back to. Bone as a complete work of art
A great work, yeah.
is maybe I'll say Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone,
That's a good one. Yeah.
who was very
Awesome.
much influenced by Calvin and Hobbes. So you couldn't have Bone without that,
I always say it's
or Wild
the
Kelly's Pogo.
this
So
the love child of
yeah,
of Calvin and Hobbes and Walt and Pogo, right? Okay,
yeah.
that's great. That's a good one. Okay, Chris, do you have a favorite thing to draw?
Batman. I
Right.
can't use that for both.
Yeah.
So I'll say faces. I'm always doing my face weird shapes and into faces. So weird shapes that become faces is my favorite thing to draw.
Do you have a least favorite thing to draw?
Buildings, architecture. I appreciate
Perspective.
architecture,
Yeah.
but I just don't connect with it as much to draw if I don't have to.
Do interiors? Yeah. Do interiors fall under that too? Putting your characters in spaces when you're creating your comics and you're envisioning your worlds. Do you find, and I'm asking you this because I feel this way. I draw the least amount of background possible to place my characters somewhere. I
Mm-hmm.
decide what are the only things I need to make,
Right.
There's a million excuses and reasons why I do that. But do you feel that about that? Is that a similar thing? Like, do you feel like interiors, or no? Is it more exteriors and like the overwhelming architecture?
More. It's just like it's my least favorite thing, so I don't do it if I don't have to
Yeah,
necessarily. But I do think it's important. I do think it adds weight to it. Um, and I see how people react more if you can cement them in a environment and
right.
give that environment personality. It just enhances the overall piece. So, and people
Yeah,
connect more if, but just an environment without a character, it's harder for me to connect with. So,
yeah,
I think if I find a way, like I remember early college experience of having a perspective assignment and we had to draw a city. So my solution was to draw a city, make a big perspective grid, 2 point, nothing too crazy, and then have Godzilla right in the middle, like destroying
yeah.
the city. So and covering up as much as I could.
As much as you could. Yeah, yeah. That was a smart solution.
But there still was a city.
Yep. Okay, Chris. What inspires you? It doesn't have to be artistically. It could be anything. But what inspires you as an artist?
I'm so endlessly amazed and inspired by other artists. So life is one thing, like you can just go out into life and that's always inspiring. Like whether it's nature, like we get to do at our sweet retreat. There's a creek you can go sit by, like and that's it's like forest bathing, is inspiring. Faces are inspiring, but to me, there's always new heights to reach as an artist, new techniques to try. So I'm always inspired by seeing other artists doing things differently and doing things their own way to try to help me figure out how to do things my own way by pinching a little bit here and there from different artists. And so other artists always inspire me.
I think that's very true, and I also think that it's a great way to live as an artist is to always look around and be in awe of the
Yeah.
different ways that people see and the different ways that people make. Um, I was once at a workshop for illustrators and was in a large circle of illustrators, and everyone was kind of commiserating about how much they felt the pain of comparison
Mm.
with other artists. And when we were going round robin on a circle, and when it
Mm.
reached me, I was like, I never compare myself to anybody.
Right, right.
And everyone was like, and I was like, I said, no, I said, I love it. Like, I love
Right.
it. Absolutely love it. There's always somebody better than you. There's always somebody a little bit behind you. There's always going to be that. Like, you're always going to fall in
Right.
this never ending spinning circle of people's skills and what they do and how they see. But to me, it's like, how could it not be? It's just always so
To me, it's just
exciting.
sheer joy to see other artists making cool stuff. It's never
Yeah.
like, oh, that. Sometimes, half jokingly, you'd be like, screw that person. That's too awesome. Like that can't be,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But genuinely, it's just pure joy to see cool art by other artists, and
And it
you know,
lights a fire. Like if you see someone, you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, that's good. That's really
yeah,
damn good." It's just like, well, I better get better. Like I better get back to
right.
work,
Like, ooh,
right?
like
I'm not
I'm
working
not
hard
trying
enough.
hard enough. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I've had moments of like little bit of like art envy. Like if someone gets an opportunity that's amazing, I've had those little moments of like, somebody once got to illustrate. The book never came out, but the book announcement came
Oh,
out that somebody would got to illustrate the lyrics to Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band.
oh, nice.
I was like, oh, kill me now. You're gonna make a children's book of
Sure.
Sergeant Pepper's
Right.
Lonely, it's not about the artist, it's about the the opportunity. Like, oh,
Right.
yeah, I'd kill for that. Yeah. So okay, awesome. All right. So, what do you hope that people take away from your work? What do you hope that your work is actually kind of saying to the viewers who take it in?
My hope is that they get a smile out of it in general. Sometimes I get more, like Turbo Hawk is more action oriented or, a little more straightforward, but it still has an air of satire to it. But basically, it's always about making somebody smile, giving a little bit of whimsy or joy, uh, in adding that to somebody's day. Like I think is would make me happy if I can just share a smile, a little spark of joy in somebody's life, even fleeting as it might be. Uh, that's kind of what I strive for.
That's great. Yeah, I think that that's like a noble pursuit, and I also think it's one of the best things you can do with your life. You're trying to bring joy to other people.
That's the hope.
All right. So if you could do anything, if you could work on any dream project with people said, whatever you want, it's greenlit and you can do it, what would it be?
I'm always, since I was younger, been a fan of comics and graphic novels. So I would love to do like a nice big graphic novel, like a meaty, like Infinite Jest of a graphic novel. But also the idea of doing a really cool animated movie, like a 2D animated movie that had the kind of artistry that I love in comics that doesn't get utilized in animation as much. Certainly not for feature length. I'd really love to tackle an animated feature that would have some like caricature elements to it, and like comedy, but like almost a Coen Brothers esque with more dynamic action, kind of
An
animated feature.
animated
Like
Coen's brother movie.
yeah, but with
That
a
would be
little bit
cool.
more cartoony elements. But yeah, I mean, some of the
Right.
movies are kind of cartoony, like Raising
Right.
Arizona, especially.
Right.
Because like you hear stories about movies that almost got made, like Brad Bird almost made a movie of Will Eisner's The Spirit, like
Right.
something like that, which never has really come out. So I'd love to do something of that ilk. Like
Yeah.
there's some Peter Chung who did Aeon
Flux. Yeah.
Some amazing Levi's commercials that he did, like in
Right.
the late '90s. That like a feature in that kind of style. Like I definitely took a lot of influence from his early stuff, but so something like that would be a total pipe dream.
There was
project.
that time in the 70s and into the very early 80s when animation was being made for an older audience, right? Yeah. There were so many things, whether it was Ralph Bakshi movies, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that went away. And that would be awesome, right? If it would find a way to come back. It's fascinating that of all the things that bubble up in social media that percolate to the surface, the movie Rock and Rule. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
I have seen it 70 times in the last week on social media.
No kidding. So the algorithm has shifted to show you that.
That was that weird, slightly muzzled faced characters, but it was Iggy Pop and Debbie Harry. I don't remember who else, but I saw it when I was young and impressionable.
Right.
As I saw many other things I probably shouldn't have seen when I was young and impressionable.
Yeah.
Like I watched it all in the 70s and the 80s and and American Pop, right? Was not the that was the one that was rotoscoped and Bob Seger was his song was like the main song that they used. And
I feel like he's come the closest to doing something like that.
Sure.
But the
Yeah.
stories never quite hung together, or it was more rotoscoping and not enough
Not enough actual
actual
animating, right? When you watched
animation.
a
Yeah,
Ralph Bakshi movie, it was almost all rotoscoped, and then he'd have the one really exaggerated, cartoony
yeah, yeah.
character who would come onto the screen, and you'd be like, where'd that cat come from?"
How's
Right?
that fit in here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so different.
No, but
Yeah,
those
so
are all great, and
yeah, more adult animation, or just say older audience animation would be so good.
that still celebrates that elastic 2D animation. Because
Right.
there's a few great adult leaning animated shows like
Right.
less features, I guess, but they don't really
Utilize the
like if it's
form, right?
yeah, right,
Yeah,
right. A
yeah,
lot of them, if it's adult animation, then they're real stiff and
right.
simple and sarcastic, kind of.
It's humor driven,
So
not art
yeah,
driven. But you would love
yeah,
to
more
make
verbal.
something, right? You'd make something that's more like the actual art is like, yeah, that would be awesome. That's a great
Right.
idea. Yeah,
So
pretty cool. Yeah. Um yeah, and if you did get to do the graphic novel, is it something that you've already thought about? Like if you had a nugget
yes,
of an
I
idea?
have
Yeah.
copious notes for a few of that type.
Yeah. So that's a
I
matter
hope
of you just have
to
to
get
you have
to
to take the leap.
yeah, just carve out enough time to do it,
Yeah.
like most of my comics, But
Exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, if I had like somebody to bankroll that, that would be the dream part of the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I could do it in 3 years instead of 20 years.
That was great to be able to ask you those questions and hear your answers.
Yeah, are you ready to?
I'm ready. I don't watch. I won't know what the hell to say. I ask everybody, and I don't know what the hell to say.
But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, some of it for me, it's always like, oh. Okay,
All right. All right. All right.
Kelly Light,
Yes.
Cartoon Everything, where we ask you these rapid fire questions, put you in the hot seat for a change.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start off. Who is your favorite cartoon character? Who could it
It
be?
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really.
Cam.
It's not even like a. It's not even a second thought. Since
Yeah.
I am, I don't know how early. What was my first moment of Snoopy? My first moment of Snoopy. I don't know. I always say I had the bed sheets, I had the lunchbox, I had the Snoopy snow cone machine, I had a pencil sharpener, I had an electric toothbrush. Um, yeah, I imagine it was the Sunday Funny that hit my eyes first. It was the comic strip because it was every Sunday morning the newspaper would come and my older brother and I would argue for who got the front page because who was on the front page? Peanuts. So, and then add to it the holiday specials and watching Snoopy come to life, being animated by the genius Bill Melendez. I always say, like, yeah, Charles Schultz created the greatest cartoon character ever and then found just the right person to work with to bring him to life. So it's almost like in my head, I have this one being of Snoopy. And even though Snoopy started off with Puppy Snoopy in the 50s to long nosed Snoopy in the 60s, who's actually kind of my favorite, to the bulbous big nose Snoopy that we have today. Like Snoopy's kind of changed over the
Yeah.
decades, but I love Snoopy. I have a little bit of a Snoopy problem, but yeah, Snoopy.
If loving Snoopy is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So, therefore, do you have a favorite comic strip? Or if you couldn't choose Peanuts, do you have a favorite comic book or comic strip?
If I had to pick one thing that is cartooning, right? If I have to pick one, I have to pick one thing in the world of cartoons, whether it's a strip or it's a book or animated, right? So I'm not going to pick Peanuts. I won't pick Snoopy. And I wouldn't even know if that would be the thing. Like
Ah,
I have it is hard to pick, right? Because there's so many amazing things in the world of cartooning. Um so I don't know if Peanuts would be the thing that I would pick in the world of cartooning. Snoopy certainly. Um but if I had to pick one thing that I return to over and over and over again, it would probably be. Oof, I'm trying to pick between two things in my brain. Um, I'm gonna. I start every class, every workshop, everything I do when I talk about cartoons. I start with "Feed the Kitty" by Chuck Jones.
oh yeah,
It's a short. It's an animated short, right? And so in my head, I was arguing between an animated movie and Feed the Kitty, but I'm going to come back to Feed the Kitty. Um, Not everybody might agree with me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's the best example of somebody who could just act with a pencil, and he wasn't the only person who made it. Chuck Jones is the director, but when you look at the pencil drawings of what Chuck Jones drew, Pussyfoot and Mark Antony the dog, and then
yeah,
you watch the cartoon, it's all there in his pencil drawings. So
right.
I think that would be the thing. If I had only one thing that was a cartoon thing that I would like, that would be it. It'd probably be Feed the Kitty by Chuck Jones.
Excellent choice. I just showed some stills from that to my class just yesterday.
Yeah, and I always say um, he should have won the best acting award. The dog, Mark
Nice.
Antony,
Yeah,
for
right.
that year. Should have won that. He should have won the Oscar. The dog, that poor
That's
dog,
fair.
goes through every emotion.
It's true, and you feel it right along with them.
Yeah,
So that said, do you have a favorite medium to draw our cartoon in?
I am not that exciting when it comes to. Um, I love pencils. I just love pencils to the point where I have a pencil problem. Like
Right.
searching, I'm always searching for the best pencil. And this is one of the things that we discussed with one of our interviews too. Is this Musgrave News 600 News pencil,
Yeah.
um, and the Blackwing 602.
Oh yeah.
But I do need to stop buying pencils. But I am constantly in the pursuit of the most enjoyable, what I call the most enjoyable drag. It's the way that a pencil
Right.
drags when you draw. Can it be any geekier than that? To discuss how a pencil feels on a paper. Like,
It's
oh,
not just the pencil, but finding the right matchup of the right tooth of paper. It's like,
yes.
you know,
Yeah, and the Barrel Prisma color, like the blue animation pencil,
oh yeah.
it's the not the light blue, not the non-photo blue, but the darker blue,
Mm-hmm.
um, doesn't feel the same anymore because
Uh,
Prismacolor was sold to Rubbermaid, the company that makes plastic,
ah.
and they don't.
Aha.
Yeah. So there's the thing when you have something that you love, like some kind of art tool that you love, and it changes, and you're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
curses, curses. So yeah, so a pencil, a good greasy, draggy pencil. Yeah.
Nice. Well, your love of those pencils shines through in your artwork, so you
Thank
can
you.
see it.
Thank you.
All
Sometimes I
right.
feel my artwork looks unfinished, but then I go like, no, I want to leave it. I want to leave it in
That's
that
called
place.
that's called energy. It's like you
Right.
could. That's something that I do love about pencils. As much as I love the ink, there's a finite quality to inking that feels finished. Even a Sienkiewicz, you know, energetic ink drawing, there's still something about it that is not captured, or that you can't capture that with ink the same energy you can capture with a pencil. So I
It's
do appreciate
instant.
that.
It's an instant
Yeah.
thing, and I think that's it. It's like you pull the mark is made. Um, and it's yeah. What's the difference between that and ink? I don't know. but there's something about it, and maybe
Something
it's just
there for
it's
sure.
the friction, right? And when you're working with ink, you do like the flow, right? What brush are you using? What pen are you using? What ink are you using? Right? You can get geeky about that stuff too, but maybe it is with the pencil. It literally is that friction that you
But there's
feel that
also
you
the
get.
flow with pencils, like Chuck Jones, like you mentioned his drawings, the life that he
Right.
got into Mark Antony, and he would have a great flow to his pencil drawings as well as like people like Peter DeSev. His pencil drawings they are life itself incarnate, personified.
And the magic to his work is that when he does his watercolors, he never covers his pencil drawing, right? So that
Yeah,
whole thing is like,
still
why is his work magic? Because you can see the drawing right
right.
there. So, yeah, yeah.
And so when you're drawing with these amazing pencils, what is your favorite thing to draw?
My favorite thing to draw these days, I would have said to you just people. I would have
Hmm.
said to you maybe, up to 10 years ago, I just used to just love to just take in people and just draw all the crazy people around. Now it's derpy animals. So I don't know where the shift came. If is it like a pandemic fixation on like just looking online and just like watching
Yeah,
too many animal videos. Um, but yeah, now I like animals that you can pump weird people things. You either see
right.
those weird personalities in the animals or you pump them into the animals. So that's, I guess, these days it might be my yeah, it could be my self-soothing as I get older, that I'd rather just laugh.
Right.
And yeah, there's a little bit more escapism in the animals, you know. So
That's cool. That's cool how, these things can evolve. Things that
mhm.
we drew as kids. Like I drew the shit out of, pardon my French, but I drew the heck out of Voltron as a kid.
Right, right,
Uh, and now robots not as interesting for me to draw. I still love them. I
right.
still love a giant robot versus a kaiju, but that's not where my favorite thing to draw anymore. So
Yeah.
it can evolve. So what would be your least favorite current
My
thing to
least
draw?
favorite thing to draw is anything mechanical. You're just talking about
Yeah.
robots. My least favorite thing to draw, I would instantly say vehicles. But even that has changed a little bit. I can enjoy some vehicles these days, by super letting myself exaggerate them,
Right.
not fixating on getting it right, but fixating on making it mine. So now I'll just say really truly mechanical and or technical things.
Hmm.
Those are the things. Like, if I can't make it funny and I'm forced to make it right,
Right.
like not so much. Yeah.
I'd go so far. I would agree. Uh, I go so far as to say either way, whether it's people or buildings or cars or mechanical things, if I have to make it rigidly accurate,
Right.
then all the fun goes out of it for me. Like, to me, yeah, I could have fun drawing anything car, motorcycle, helicopter, building if I can make it my own and cartoon it into my, through my lens. That's
Right,
what makes it
exactly.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if I can break it down again, it's all about the shapes. If I can break it down
Right?
and I can let myself like see through the complicatedness, then
Right.
I can make it almost just makes me kind of depressurize. But if I hit
Hmm.
it just like looking at it going, I have to draw a tractor. Oh god.
Right.
Like there's a lot.
Correctly.
Yeah, but then if I like, I have to spend time with it and go like, I got to look through this tractor and find out like, oh yeah, I get okay, yeah, all
Yeah.
right, I can break it down and I can tackle it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what if you are drawing faces, animals, or your random tractor? Uh,
Yes.
what inspires you?
Hmm. What inspires me?
Doesn't have to be
Again, I
drawing, but
yeah, I think again, it's something that's shifted and changed. I would have answered this very quickly of just saying like the fascinating diversity of the shapes and interesting ways that people look. I would have just boom. I was like, yeah, I just love looking around at all the different shapes and sizes and interesting, fabulous people that exist. Um, and somehow it's still cool and I still love it, but it's morphed into being somewhere. Usually, it has a lot to do with travel.
Mm-hmm.
Being somewhere out of my element and experiencing a moment or a place or a setting. I get most inspiration when I can be somewhere kind of, but there's a word for it, like you're in liminal space. Do you ever hear? Like liminal
Right.
space is
Mm-hmm.
when you're not any one place, you're between
Right.
spots, you know? And sometimes when you travel, you can feel that. Like I'm not in my normal life, I'm out of my normal life. I can feel a little bit like a fly on the wall or an observer when I'm not in my normal life. And that's why I
Mm.
love travel's inspiring to see beautiful places, but there's something about it and it does something to my brain where that's when I will like just my imagination will just go like popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sitting in a pub in England, I'm not necessarily drawing the people who are sitting in the pub around me, which is what I would have used to
Right.
have done.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
more like imagining, well, this pub is from 1785, so let me draw the people that were here in 1785 and
Oh
creating
yeah.
like weird characters. Then, you know, so like that kind of stuff happening upon a children's choir. This I'm going back to my trip to England. Like I happened upon a children's choir in England and I watched them, I listened to them sing. It was Christmas time. And then I sat and had tea and I sat and I drew my own weird cuckoo, you know, children's choir. So things like that, more like experiences that are out of my normal life.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Because you've gotten to go to some really cool places. You've done retreats overseas and visited places across the country as far as cool, interesting places to draw that have neat history. And
Yeah. And you know, I think every artist needs input to have output, and that's kind of I can feel my, you know, my little meter going
yeah, right.
sometimes like
Time to plan another trip. Yeah.
yeah, anything that shakes it up.
Yeah.
And if I can't get away, then I need to find a way to do that for myself somehow. Get some inspiration somehow to just make the, you know, the creativity meter go like
Yeah.
back up a little bit. So
Recharge the
yeah.
batteries.
Yeah.
Cool. Favorite cartoonist?
Chuck
If you had to
Jones.
pick one.
Yeah, if I
Boom.
well, or would we take away Charles Schultz and Chuck Jones because they're too automatic? Would be Walt Kelly. It would leave Walt Kelly. So, so yeah, if I could, I think not be a broken record and say Charles Schultz and Chuck Jones all the time. I would say my number 3 would be Walt Kelly, but he certainly is not number 3 in the world of cartoonists. So, I think I was 8 years old the first Pogo book I ever bought, which was at a comic book shop.
Oh,
And
cool.
I just picked up I Go Pogo, which was sitting on a rack.
Mm-hmm.
Never saw it before because Pogo was not necessarily in my Sunday Funnies as a kid.
Right.
I saw the book, and I now am a person who has way too many Pogo books. I have like over 60 Pogo books.
Yeah, you have so many. I didn't realize that many existed.
They are. Some of them are like, you know, like compilations. So there are some that have the same content as others, but they have different covers, and the covers are like, that man could draw a cover.
Yes.
He was quite like a designer. Like his book covers are awesome. So yeah, so his the way that he drew, the way he created, the actual way that he drew his characters. We could talk for 5 million years about his ink line.
Right.
but underneath that is this amazing design. His character design is just gorgeous. So, yeah, well, Kelly.
Yeah, that's a great one. He's a giant. Um, Here's a question about your work. What do you hope people will take away from viewing or experiencing your work?
Um, I have a real legitimate answer to this question because I actually experienced it, and I feel like it might have been the moment. I hope my work continues to do this for mostly kids. Mostly kids are my audience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I get good feedback from their parents. So, um, so I once got a message on Instagram from someone's father. It was a father was putting his daughter to bed, and her name was Ella, and the father said, "Hi, I'm just reaching out to you because I'm trying to put my daughter Ella to bed, and she won't go to bed unless she knows uh, what kind of pajamas your character wears to bed, and what cereal your character eats in the morning." And that was a moment when I felt, oh my gosh, like the thing that I've experienced as a cartoon viewer my whole life of feeling like I know somebody. Well, I feel
Yeah.
like I know Pogo. I feel like I know Snoopy. I feel like I know Mark Antony, or I know the Grinch, or
Yeah.
like I did it. Like that moment, I had like one of those, like, would be like a rack focus if it was a movie of my life.
Right.
Where it's like, oh my gosh, like I created a character that somebody believes is real. So that's what I hope my work does. It did it for that kid. So that's the thing, is I hope that is the connection, that my drawings feel like they have life wherever their
Right.
pretend world is that they are existing in. And they make somebody feel that like connection.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that's what all of us, as much as we love the line work and the shapes and everything, that's what we all connected at some point to some comic characters as kids,
Yep.
which brought us into this world. So that's beautiful. That's cool. It's so great how you found out about it too, like from that dad reaching out. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't tell you like what a nut I was about it. Like I was like, I'm writing on Instagram and I'm writing this novel back, like,
Right.
oh, these are the pajamas and this is the cereal. And, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was cool.
Well, that goes a long way to why it connected and why that reader felt that the characters were real, is that what pajamas they would wear and what cereal they ate. Like your characters so well and have thought about these things, uh, which goes to show it's like early Pixar would talk about in their animated scenes and movies that they would sand the underside of the drawer. So it's like to make the environment that real, that lived in. So even the part you don't see, you know what
Yeah.
details go into that. And it's like you build that. Even if we only see this little pocket of that universe, you know what's beyond the tip of that iceberg for yourself. And that makes the story that much richer and that much more real. So that's a good point for any story. That's even
Yeah.
more cool.
Yeah. And I hope, again, as somebody who now hopes to teach others, whether in college or like in the workshop that we do, it's something that I do with my students in class, is like everybody, like, think about the who that you're drawing. You put the who in who you're drawing. It makes that character somehow just literally embody whatever your story idea is, whether you've been given a manuscript or you've written it yourself. Like if you really know the personality, right? And that's something I learned from my own obsession with Chuck Jones, is like, if you really think about that, it's gonna come out. Like it's really gonna come out. And I think you know that too. We've been living with certain characters since you were in high school. They they kind of take up residence up here,
Right.
eh?
Yeah.
And getting them into a book and finishing a book is like that moment where you can kind of like evict them and be like, okay, you can go now.
Yeah.
But
Right.
for all that time that you're still working with these characters, they're up here and they're living this existence. None of us have the time to actually make the book that shows exactly how much time they've taken up in your imagination. But everything that I have ever drawn is animated in my brain.
Right.
Yeah, it's like there's
So you
always a
realize,
running thing.
right.
Little
So you
movie
realize at some
man.
point it's important to listen to your characters as they're running around in there, and
Yeah. Yeah, and I always say to people too is like you have to draw more than what you need, because
right.
that's all of the you want your actor or your character to try things out and rehearse before they have to get on stage.
Right.
So if there's a moment where your character has to have a feeling or a reaction or an expression, you got to try certain things out. You can't just
Right.
pick one. Draw a whole bunch and then go, oh yeah, no, this is the one. I see this one. This is the one that works the best.
Right. It's like whatever take, you don't choose the first take.
Right.
You need to go through the scene a few
Yep.
times, and there might be one random moment when your character's goofing off in your sketchbook that becomes a pivotal moment in your actual story, which you would not have gotten to if you hadn't
Tried.
taken that character
Yeah.
out to play a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So these are the things we
okay,
do.
yes, wonderful to hear. Awesome to get into it in a little bit further details. How about well, if you had your druthers completely, do you have a dream project?
This is the question that I was like, oh, if you ask me that question, am I going to have an answer for this? I think yes. I mean, I think again, if I could do anything, yes, it would probably be. I have a practical dream project that I think I can do,
Right. Sure.
which would be a graphic novel, which would be like a real like I would love to do that too. I'd like to dig in and I can tell this story of a summer in Brazil, which you and I have talked about.
Yeah. Right.
My grandfather got a VW bus and packed all of his grandchildren into it, and we spent a whole summer visiting 250 relatives I never knew I had in
That's an
Brazil.
amazing
And
book waiting
yeah,
to happen. So
yeah,
that's a real life, could actually happen
that
dream
could actually
project.
happen. Then the other one would be something animated too, like
Yeah.
something where animation is possibly of all the arts, not just in the world of genres of cartooning, but of all the art forms that there are, other than the Sistine Chapel ceiling, animation is the most time consuming art
Right.
that you can do. The amount of hours, when we talk about animators that we admire, we talk about like Bill Plimpton, who's a one guy animator, and he's just him and his colored
Yeah.
pencils with like amazing on
Chipping
paper
away, one frame at a time.
animation. Yeah, and somehow that amazing man has done several animations. Yeah, I think I would. I don't even want to say it has to be a movie. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
happy with a short, something that I could finally, after all these years, go back and dig in and finish something animated.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And it doesn't have to be a movie. Like it could just be a short. Because that's the one thing. If I could ask anything of the universe, I would ask for time, uninterrupted time, to do nothing but create. It's like a Twilight Zone episode with Burgess Meredith, where all he wants is the time to
His
read.
glasses.
Yeah. So all I want is the time to draw. That would be
Yeah, so cool to hear your thoughts on some of those questions that we ask so many others.
So that was fun to talk about our upcoming workshop, Cartoon Everything, August 3rd through the
Cartoon
6th
everything.
at the Highlights Foundation this summer.
Yes, the beautiful Highlights Foundation Retreat Center in lovely Millenville, Pennsylvania. Everybody gets their own cabin, on-site chef, 3 meals a day with locally sourced food and supplies. So one of the most idyllic places to go eat, drink, and experience cartoon everything.
So you can visit cartooneverything.com for more information on how to register and the information about the Highlights Foundation. You can follow me, Kelly Light, which is at Kel Light on Instagram, or you can visit kellylight.com.
Yeah, our home base, cartooneverything.com, but also you can find out more of me, Meesimo.com, or at Meesimo on Instagram and other social media. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our kicking off season 1 of our Cartoon Everything podcast. I like to always say, 1, draw faster than the speed of second thought. 2, draw something fun for yourself every day. But always draw something every day. And you can find out more about us, cartooneverything.com, Cartoon Everything Retreat, August 3rd through 6th at the Highlights Foundation. Thanks so
Thanks.
much.
Bye. For more information on our 3-day workshop coming up this summer, August 3rd through the 6th at the Highlights Foundation, visit cartooneverything.com.